How's that? Stupid XSplit. All right. There we go. Can we hear you now? Anyone? How are we doing? There we go. Cool. Yeah, it just every once in a while, it just XSplit, the software I use, just decides I think I'll just attach to a different microphone, and that's fun. So anyway, yeah, there we go. XSplit just do another update before the show. It didn't. That's what's so strange. You know, you'd think, but no. As it turns out, no. Let me see here. Everyone loves computers. It's totally true. Totally true. All right. Morning from Texas. Loud and clear. You sound okay. Much better. That's good to hear. I appreciate it. Happy birthday, man. On to another 50 years. Absolutely. Thank you. Excited to hear your thoughts, mate. Well, I've got thoughts. I'm lip reading, and he said something about sausages in the fridge. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's true. I'm pretty sure that's it. Good morning from Columbus, Ohio. Listening along while I work on my backlog of unbuilt Marvel Crisis Boogaloo models. Nice. Hello from Singapore. How you doing? Glasgow, Santa Cruz, Switzerland, Moncton, New Brunswick. That's not a word I think I've said before. I mean, I've said New Brunswick before, but not Moncton. I don't think I may be mispronouncing that. Let me see here. Poland. We got Northern Wisconsin State Fair. Oh, there we go. Ontario, Alabama, Akron, Ohio, Northern California, Germany. Let's see here. Thinking about getting back into 40k via the new Kill Team box set as a change from Flames of War and Team Yankee. Nice. Hello from North Carolina. First time ever catching the show live. Your videos have helped me jump back into the hobby after 10 years with Corn Berserker kit bashes. Nice. Good to hear. I'm glad to hear it. France says hello. We'll say hello back to the France for you. I appreciate it. Poland. Las Vegas. Gothenburg, Sweden. Philadelphia. Dublin. Pasadena. Let's see here. Virginia. Any update on the relaunch for Game 4? Currently working on front-end stuff, which is to say the stuff that you guys see when you look at the app. That's what I'm doing. I'm working on kind of a... It's not going to be it's going to be a redesign because we're putting it on a new platform, but we're not going to change things drastically. You know, we're going to freshen and tweak and things like that, but that's already... That's started now, so that's good. Good morning from Southern England. Let me see here. Greetings from Gothenburg. Just finished my first Napoleonics and some Wood Elves. Nice. Tennessee, Corpus Christi, Texas, Maryland, Hudson, Illinois. New Kill Team might be the first GW I've bought since the original Rogue Trader. My goodness. Wow. Yeah. On the topic of the new Kill Team, does anyone feel it might be Warcry in space now? I mean, in very simple terms, sort of. And we'll talk a little bit about that, I think. But yeah. Did you catch Glass Half Dead's video going over the Kill Team 2 mechanics? Sounds like it takes the best of a bunch for different games. I did not. No. I'm sorry. Let's see here. We are already splitting the box contents. Anyone know how much it will be? I don't think anyone does. According to the website, the article that they posted, it's going to come out in August, which is like, 31 days. So we don't know exactly when August. But that's, my concern was they were going to be like, oh yeah, it's going to be coming out later this year. But August, that's at least a target. You can, that's something. So we'll see how that goes. New Kill Team got me so excited I might actually build and play the old Kill Team starter I have. Well, that's something. You could do that. I played my first Warcry last week. It was fun. Yeah, I got to finally play again with Sam, actually. We played on Monday of last week, the day after 4th of July. And in the United States, usually if a national holiday falls on a Sunday, then you get Monday off. If it falls on a Saturday, then you get Friday off, generally, So I had Monday off, and so Sam and I got together. We were going to get together at the local games shop, but it was closed, which we didn't realize. But it makes sense. And then we instead got together at the studio and played there. I have a small table there that was a little tiny. It's a little small for the even the 22 by 30 board. Like it's wide enough, or it's long enough, but it's not deep enough. But it was fine. It fit just fine. Let me see here. The box will be $50 more than you hope it will cost. Well, that's possible, yeah. Why is our new Necromunda terrain doing that new Kill Team box? I don't. Well, I mean, it's all orc stuff, so I don't think it's. It looks a little Necromunda-y. I'll give you that, maybe. No desire to play Kill Team, but those Commando guys look like a nice fit for Zona Alpha. They're maybe a little too. I would say personally that for Zona Alpha, they're too either stylized and not realistic looking. You know what I mean? Because they're kind of like weird sci-fi World War I dudes, kind of. You know what I mean? That's the Deathcore Krieg have always been that way. It is interesting to see, and this is weird to me. Deathcore of Krieg, the actual resin ones from Forge World, always used to be much more proportionally true to scale, meaning that their wrists and their ankles and stuff like that looked more like an actual human. So I was thinking to myself, after seeing some of the new games that have come out recently that have had kind of smaller, spindly models, Dominion's got the kind of thinner orcs, Cursed City's got like these very thin skeletons and stuff like that. I was like, well, they're maybe going to just keep then, you know, once they said, oh, it's going to be Deathcore of Krieg, you know, in the video thing, before they showed the actual pictures, I expected them to be like the old ones, just in plastic, and they're kind of dummy thick, like you know, guardsmen or space marines or whatever, where their wrists are like this big around and their ankles are about the same. And I was kind of surprised by that, because I don't know, I kind of thought that they would stay kind of that more skinny, kind of almost weedy, if you will, kind of thing, but I don't know. Let's see here. Is Kill Team easy to jump into if you play 40k? I have Necrons and Marines. Do I need to buy Pariah to play? You don't need to buy Pariah at all, ever. That's the one thing that's a little weird, is that they came out with Pariah Nexus and it was a big kind of to-do, and now it's obsolete, basically. I mean, the models are still the models. You can still use the models. It's great. You could probably still use the board to do, I don't know, things. I'm not sure. But like the fact that you had to have that book if you wanted to play with Space Marines or Necrons and Kill Team, well, that's all going away. I saw somebody in the previous, before the show started, chatting about, geez, do you think that all the other expansions and stuff are going to be obsolete? Yes. I mean, the missions and scenarios that are in them are kind of always useful. It's always nice to have the scenarios if you're just like, well, you know, we've run through these scenarios that are in this book so many times. Let's go look at something. That's why, like, the General's Handbook, the Kill Team Annual, even though there's only ever been one, the Chapter Approved, like all those like yearly books, when the next one comes out, yeah, sure, it replaces the previous one, but those scenarios are still something you can play. So it's like you've got an extra book of scenarios and stuff like that. It's just like the point costs and all that other junk that are put in there. Those are all now basically obsolete, because now the new one is the current information. But Elites, like, basically, from what it looks like, the rules are completely incompatible. This is not a like 8th to 9th 40k kind of update where there's still weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, blah blah blah, and all that kind of, like, they've completely changed the way. If you've seen some of the screenshots that when I think Adam Troke was flipping through the book, they showed some of the data sheets or whatever they're called now, data cards. I don't know. They look completely different. Like, the stats are very, very, very different. I'm pretty sure that everything that we've purchased for Kill Team is now, other than, like I said, the scenarios that you could probably reuse, they're basically kind of moot, which is a bummer. But I kind of thought that they might kind of rip off the Band-Aid here and completely change the way things worked. They've done it. Even just from what we saw yesterday, if you watched the thing on Twitch and all that stuff, it's more than I thought. The fact that they have like little rulers that come with the game that aren't just like inches, but are like symbols and all that kind of stuff, that's a little surprising to me. Because even Warcry still uses a tape measure or whatever, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, you move 3 sticks or what. Yeah, so I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know. We'll see how that works out. Maybe since that these Krieg Our veterans, they get extra rations, and that's why they're thick. I could see, sure, that's probably the case. Didn't they say the board will be the same size? Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it'll still be 22 by 30 or whatever. Yeah. So the board, I guess that's true too. Yeah. Your boards and stuff and your terrain from previous, like, sure, that'll all work, and your models obviously too. But yes, that's the case. Let's see here. I've since left Age of Sigmar and 40k in favor of Dragon Rampant and Xenos Rampant. Hardcover official book in 2022. I haven't heard of Xenos Rampant. That's interesting. But I still play Warcry. I wonder if the new kill team will be up my alley. I mean, it might. It seems like they're going more in that direction to some degree. So yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. They said something about the war zones being still good. Yes, that's true. The war zones, sure. The war zones will still be good. Your terrain will still work, that kind of stuff. But all the books, elites, commanders, arena, the board will still, for arena and stuff like that, I guess will still work. And I guess the scenarios probably still will, but you'd have to play with the new rule set, which is a different thing. And there might be, I honestly never looked crazy close into like how many things in arena were directly linked to the rules, so I don't know if there's anything there that might become troublesome or anything like that. But the board will still work, and those little doors and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I hope the new movement mechanic in Kill Team is simple and they remove the ambush. Yeah, I could see that. I'm interested in new Kill Team models, despite my disappointment of a massively different rules set. I'm interested in the Orcs. I'm interested a little bit in the Krieg. I don't know. We'll see. But I am interested in the Orcs because I was planning on building an Orc, a kill team anyway. And I've got for just regular boys, I've got the heads that I want to use because they have fezzes. They're from, I think, Cromlech or Spellcrow, but I think it's Cromlech. So, having some commandos and some boys in there. I don't know that I would want to in a normal... Well, again, and we don't know what the rules look like yet. Going off of the old rules, I wouldn't want to run an entire group of just commandos. I would want to have, some commandos and some boys and maybe even a Luda or something like that in there or whatever. But now, with the new things, it'll be hard to tell. We also know for sure that Kill Team is going to be an action economy similar to Warcry. Much of the way Warcry works will be ported over to 2.0. Warcry is, I think, a fun game, and I do enjoy the way that it works as far as the activation thing is kind of cool. The activation thing in Warcry, it's not just you roll every turn to see, who gets to go first each turn. You do, but it's not just the roll that determines that. You're also, you're throwing 6d6, six-siders, and then the person who has the most single dice, just a 4, just a 5, just a whatever, they get to basically go first. But if you get doubles out of that 6, or triples, or even a quad, then in that turn, you'll be able to use that as a special kind of spell or special ability. So it's kind of maybe I get to go first, but that's because you rolled a quad, which now I have to watch out for this entire turn, because at some point you're going to blow stuff up with your special quad rule and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting that way, and I think it's a cool mechanic. And so if they do something like that in Kill Team, that might be kind of cool. I gotta be honest, I had no problem with the old Kill Team rules. I know some people complained about the wounds mechanic and that kind of stuff. I really liked the old Kill Team rules, so I'm not going to say, the new ones are dumb, because I haven't seen them. I don't know. As humans, we like to, many of us, including myself in many situations, like to dislike change. We definitely are this is bad because it's new and different than what I expected. So I'm trying not to do that, obviously. And I again, like I said, I like Warcry. If they're basically kind of making it a Warcry version of Kill Team, that might be kind of cool. But I liked the old rules, and I got to be honest. I think that the old rule system for Kill Team, because it was so much closer to the way that 40k actually plays, I feel like it was a better indoctrination to go from Kill Team to 40k. I think that going from Warcry to Age of Sigmar, rules-wise, is not an easy switch. Sure, now you've got a bunch of Age of Sigmar models that you can get into Age of Sigmar with, but you're relearning the rule set almost completely from scratch. Whereas Kill Team was basically small scale non-squad 40K with some here, some tweaks here and there. Again, like the wounds thing and stuff like that, and some other stuff. Obviously, the activation was better than 40K. 40K activation is still, in my opinion, not good. That's as far as I'll go with that. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out. Getting Warscrolls / Warcry data is always a bit tricky. I tend to play at home and introduce my friends to the games. Wish GW would put the Warcry cards data online somewhere. Well, but they sell those books, so they're not going to do that. Yeah. Again, that's like another big benefit, in my opinion, to Age of Sigmar is that the Warscrolls are online, so you can look them over and all that kind of stuff and everything like that. So yeah, Warcry gets to sell you up to 4 different books. So if you want, like, if you've got warbands from all 4 of the Grand Alliances, then that's let's see, 50 and 7. That's $120 you're going to spend for those American for those 4 books. Now, hopefully, and they've said that the army lists and stuff like that are going to come in a separate book. You're going to have the core book, and then you're going to have the Army List Compendium. And they said it's going to come in a separate compendium. They didn't say how many compendiums. Now, you could say, well, they said compendium, and compendium is singular. Yes, but that doesn't mean that... I don't know. I'm still a little... I don't know. I could see them trying to release multiple books for the thing. Maybe they won't, and I hope they won't. I think that, frankly, they should have put it all together into one book. The fact that it's in 2 separate books, the rules and now the upside, I guess, is that if they need to, they can just release a new version of the compendium every year or whatever, and then you have all the new stats and then like new armies that pop up and new this and new that and all that kind of stuff that goes in there. That's again another way for them to sell books. Whereas if they, the fact that it was already baked into the core book for the original Kill Team meant that they had to have these add-ons and stuff. You're still carrying around 2 or more books, but, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Learning rules is not the barrier to entry to larger games. It's the investment required to buy the models. I think there's a benefit, though, to being able to learn the rules in the beginner games. I think there's something to that, so making it a completely different set of rules. I've been thinking about this for a while. I think a lot of people in the industry, not the people who work in the industry, I think a lot of people who are us in the community kind of ignore rules. Like the important thing, and you saw this yesterday, frankly, in the Twitch stream. They just basically talked about the models for 3/4 of that stream, showing the sprues and this and that and the other thing, which is fine, but they didn't really talk much about the rules at all. And they'll start talking about it soon, and there'll be articles, and there's probably an article going up right now as I'm chatting about this on the Warhammer community site. That's how the way it sometimes works. But I think rules are important, and so I won't play a game with bad rules just because I love the models or in the story. But that's not normal in the industry, at least from what I've seen over the last however many years I've been doing this. The timing of this is poor and may backfire. 12 months after a wave of lockdown shut-ins began, the hobby laid down cash, and GW changes it all on them. Newbies without old rules are fine mindset. Again, this is probably something that they had planned for the last 2 to 3 years. They probably started working, at least a year after Kill Team came out back in 2018, they probably started working on new Kill Team. That's just the way that it's the lead up time that it takes to produce these products. So yeah. Happy birthday, Uncle Adam. Thank you. Last weekend, but yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I just signed up on Twitch to find this. Can't find it live on Twitch. If you go to find this, because this is not on Twitch. This is on. But if you're talking about to watch their video, hang on a second here. Let me push this button here, and then try to find the right window for me. There we go. If you go to the Warhammer community website and go to the Preview Online Octarius Mission Briefing, there's a embedded version of it right there, so you can watch the Twitch right there if you want to watch the whole thing. It's an hour Hour and 13 minutes, and for some reason it's been running for a while. That's not cool. I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, so that's definitely something you can watch there, and I don't think you have to sign up for Twitch to watch it, at least not through their embedded thingy there on the page. Back to this button. All right, and then I have to click on this, and now I've lost the chat. There you are. Now I've lost my window. All right, there we go. I think they'll carry over units from elites. I have a suspicion that what they might do is that they may bake elites, commanders, and that kind of stuff into the new rule set from the get-go, right? So there's a very good chance, I think, that they will take the stuff from, like, elites basically added some new, slightly higher level characters or models and stuff like that into the, original lists. The original lists in many of the different armies for Kill Team were, many of them were just like 1 to 2 models sometimes, you had some of them, like Imperial Guard had a whole bunch of different models to choose from, but like the Thousand Suns, you basically had Rubric Marines and the bird dudes, and that was it. So, that's what happened. Someone is either chainsawing or weed whacking outside. That's awesome. So, anyway, my point is that very possibly, and they'd be, I think, kind of dumb to not do this. Hopefully, when they come out with this new compendium, it will have commander-type units, elite-type units, and the normal base-type units all in it. If they come out with just the base units again, and then in another 3 months they come out with an elites book again, I think that would be a bad move, but we will see how they work out. A happy Kill Team doesn't need to be a beginner game and can be an independent game made from the ground up to be a skirmish game. It's not a beginner game, true, but it does help. It's a beginner game, not in the rules set, but in the fact that you don't need an entire 1,500 to 2,000 point army. But the rules themselves weren't beginner. I don't know that any of these games are beginner. Even, Warcry is still, there's a lot to it. It's just not, maybe, none of them are difficult. Let's just sit down and say that. None of them are difficult to get the hang of. To become a master player or whatever, or a tournament winner, that's very difficult. But to be able to sit down and play Age of Sigmar, 40k, Kill Team, Warcry, Necromunda, any of the stuff, Adeptus Flyronicus or whatever, any of those games, you can do that, and it's not difficult to do. It's just that the big benefit to Kill Team and to Warcry is that it gets you buying models that eventually you might go, well, heck, if I just buy this, this, and this, I've got a Age of Sigmar army. Or I buy just this, and this tank, and now I've got enough for a combat patrol in 40k. So, like, it's trying to get you in the door. But as far as the rule sets, I don't think any of them are really simple per se. So, people's willingness to put up with shoddy rules and poor customer treatment for the sake of minis they like baffle me. At times, I almost feel like GW is like a toxic relationship. I don't think it's that bad. I think that they're a big enough company that here's the deal. Like, so Vince and I, we made a game. It's called Rain in Hell. We sold it for pretty cheap. But that's because it's not our day job. We don't have thousands of employees that we have to try to make sure get paid. And we don't have giant bills to pay for buildings that we build and this and that and the other thing. So being a huge corporation like they are, and they're not huge in the realm of like Apple, Amazon, whatever, but within the game industry, within not even within the tabletop game, or not even within the miniature game industry, within the tabletop game industry, they're one of the biggest companies out there. And they have to do stuff to make it so that they make money, and I get that. I do. Honestly, customer service I've never had trouble with them. So I don't know about that. Your mileage may vary, but if I've had a problem, if I call somebody, they send me a new thing. I haven't had to do it in a long time, to be honest. But back in the days of Finecast, I bought a box of Plague Marines, which you would think, well, they're Finecast Plague Marines, no one will notice if there's like pits and bubbles and stuff like that, which is true. But I was missing like several backpacks. So I was like, hey, and then, they just sent me new backpacks. They didn't send me a new box, which is fine. I didn't need one. I just needed some backpacks. And so that kind of stuff I've always definitely thought, at least their customer service is pretty good in that situation. So, yeah. Let's see here. Painting question, will using matte varnish damage your airbrush? I don't think so. I've never had any trouble with it. Yeah, that's the first I've ever heard of that. Let's see here. What else have we got? I bought Kill Team for the terrain in the box. Don't care about the Marines or Tau. Also included was a cool game. 2.0 will be cool too. Yeah, I mean, the original that had Admech and Genestealer Cults, that original box, that had some of the best terrain. It was just so great, and it went really, really well together, and it was a really super great price. But it was one of those things, it's kind of like that splash where you're like, we got to get people involved, so we're going to kind of drop the price in this situation to kind of get the people in there. And then, of course, you know, then they only made so many of them, and then... But it got the door open, got people excited and stuff like that. And that's kind of something you do, especially when you're kind of relaunching a product like that. Now, I have a suspicion, and I don't know for sure. I would be... I could see this cost... I don't know. I'm going to guess. I would guess this is going to maybe cost $200. Maybe it's less, but I bet not. I'm betting the box is going to be like $199. I think. I don't know. I have I haven't heard a word from anybody, but if I'm going to guess, just looking at the stuff that they've put out recently and Dominion, Curse City, all that kind of stuff, whatever, with the amount of terrain and the units on each side, you're going to be looking at what? Almost, I think it's 10 units on each side, so that's 20 units, plus also the terrain and the board and stuff like that, but they still want to get people in the door. Now, from what I understand, you buy that box set, you still need to buy the Compendium if you want to have anything else other than... Because the data cards for the Krieg and the Orcs are in this box. So if you want to play with just those dudes, great. But if you want to play with any other figures, then you're also going to have to buy that book separately, the Compendium. So, I don't know. If I had to guess, and again, I'm not psychic, or am I? I don't know. I would guess $200, but we'll see. I don't know. Do you use pigments when you paint? Have you tried spraying? Have you tried spraying pigment fixer through an airbrush? I own some pigments. I've barely ever used them. For me, I've always believed, and I don't know if this is completely true, but it seems to me as if pigments are more for folks that are into like display painting. Pigments, even if you put fixer on them, can still kind of get rubbed off a little bit here and there. You know what I mean? Like through play, handling, moving around, going from shop to your friend's house to back to your house, that kind of stuff. So that's one of the reasons why I've never really used pigments much. If you can find a spot on a model where you're like, it's unlikely anything will touch this portion, like maybe more of the, I don't want to say the inside of the model, but like the stuff that's not like, if you're putting it like on a foam tray, it won't rub on the foam. Then I could see using some pigment there, like maybe on the base or something like that. But I've not really ever used too much pigment. I've messed with it a little bit, but yeah, that's about it. $200 is way too much for 10 minis in terrain. Well, it's technically 20 minis in terrain and a rule book. So yeah, but we'll see. I mean, I hope that I'm high. I don't mean, high like with drugs. I mean, I hope that I'm high and that it's actually maybe it's 160, but I have a suspicion it'll be $200. Hope you're having a good day. Have you picked up Dominion? Greetings from the UK. I've got Dominion, yeah. Well, the Games Workshop sent me a copy of Dominion. I talked about it last month or whatever. And, itchy head back here. Anyway, so yeah, and I've actually painted up 3 of the Cruel Boys, and I think I put them in the thumbnail of that video, if I remember correctly. And what else did I do? I'm currently taking some of the Hobgrots and converting them to use them for Space Weirdos, which is this little game here. It's a PDF, but I've printed mine and put it in a little booklet, which is not hard to do, actually. You can do it directly there in the Acrobat thing. You just click the booklet button, and then you need a printer that can double-side to some degree. But otherwise, yeah. So anyway, it's a fun little... skirmish game that I enjoy, and so I'm turning those Hobgrots into sci-fi Hobgrots. I'm giving them bolter pistols and stuff like that and everything, so it's kind of fun. On the new faction page, they separate Orc Boys and Orc Commandos along with Imperial Guardsmen and Veteran Guardsmen into 2 different factions. Is that a good idea? I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't looked at that, I guess. For me, Kill Team should have been Underworlds for 40k. Small 3 to 6 mini squads battling. You know, I've always wondered why they haven't had an Underworlds game for 40k. I guess they probably had to choose, and they just decided to go with the fantasy version. But yeah, I'm a little surprised on that. Let's see. Those Krieg Troopers don't just don't do it for me. I never knew GW could be able to make Deathcore look like crap. Well, I don't know if they look like crap. I think they're good models, but they're... I mean, to be fair, they've been... I think that they've been dialed back a little bit in comparison to what it was when it was Forge World. And like I said, they've also gotten thicker, like, you know, a little more heroically scaled, I suppose. So, yeah. I thought they said that in the reveal stream that the book contained all factions you'd reasonably expect. I don't even know what that means. Well, the Compendium, I guess, will. So like I said, the core book that comes in the box won't have any data sheets in it. As Adam Troke was flipping through it, I was keeping an eye out because I was like, are the army lists in the core book? And it turns out they're not. Now, I swear he said it was going to be 140 pages too, which is sort of thick, a little bit. So I don't know. That seems like more rules because like the original core rule book for 40k or for Kill Team had the rules in it, but then also basically army lists for nearly all the armies. Didn't have Sisters of Battle, didn't have demons, didn't have a few other things here and there that I can't think of. But otherwise it had pretty much most of the rest of the stuff in it. Admittedly, they added later the elites and the commanders and stuff like that as separate things. But I don't know. So the fact that the book is like all rules and no army lists is sort of surprising to me. So that leads me to believe maybe there's more rules, or maybe they've put in a much deeper campaign/narrative sort of thing, which would be cool. I would like that quite a bit if they did that. So, you know, kind of this and that. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. But from what I understand, the other book, which is what they've referred to as the Compendium, that will have the stats for all the different types of models you can use. But we don't know anything about whether, again, it's going to have elites in it, it's going to have commandos in it, and anything that kind of, or commanders. I keep saying commandos because of the orcs. But yeah. Let's see. Those Hobgrots would be a great base for making some Ubergrot conversions for the new Beast Snagas. There's a rumor that GW may be doing faction-specific kill teams a la Underworld/Warcry. Could be interesting if true. I mean, I know those sold really well for Warcry, you know, like, and so if people are wondering which, well, not maybe, okay, so this could go one of two ways. You could either be talking about, you know, how like Warcry had like the Corvus Cabal, the Untamed Beasts, the Iron Golems that were basically just Warcry armies, although you could then get stats for them to play with them in Age of Sigmar. Then that was what they originally launched with, Warcry, and it was only those factions, and you're like, oh, okay. But then they were like, okay, well, now we've made a bunch of cards and stats for all the rest of the Age of Sigmar stuff, which was a smart move, in my opinion. But at the same time, once they did that, they also released Warcry branded boxes, but it was like, here's a bunch of Night Haunts, you know, that you could make a list out of. Here's a bunch of Gloomspite Gits. Here's a bunch of Stormcast. They might do that for Kill Team. Now, they have done in the past those Kill Team boxes where you get like a small group of dudes and like a piece of terrain and some stuff. And so there's that. They've already been doing that already. But they may make smaller boxes that is just like, here is some stuff that you could use to make a Kill Team out of. But I don't know if they even need to. I mean, they might, but they don't. I don't know if they need to. The other thing about those Warcry boxes, like the Night Haunt and the Gloomspite Gits, they were also relatively short production runs. Basically, it's not something you could have gotten for a long time. They basically kind of was a splash. It was a splash release, and then you know if you find them in a local game store right now, that's great. Like I know my local game store still has the Night Haunt one, the Warcry Night Haunt box. I'm pretty sure, like on the shelf. I was just there yesterday. I was there yesterday. So, that could be that, too. I don't know. Let me see. I know you said you weren't getting a resin printer, but have you changed your mind? Well, I do have a resin printer. I don't have it set up yet, but I bought a Elegoo Saturn. Yes, I bought a Saturn. No, Mars? It's either a Mars or a Saturn. Whichever one's the big one. I think it's the Saturn. Yeah, it's the Saturn. So, yeah, that's the same one that my good friend Matt from Game 4, we do the Game 4 podcast, which you should totally check out. Every 2 weeks we do the Game 4 podcast. Find it where your podcasts are at. And anyway, he's got that same printer. Actually, he's got 2 of them now. And so the reason I got it was because, the models that I painted in the Rain and Hell book, and then we took photos of, and then those photos got painted over by Artists Empire, blah, blah, blah. Let me show you real quick. Those were all printed by Matt using that printer. And, I mean, like these guys here. So these are resin models that Matt printed. I painted them, photographed them against a white background, and then artistsempire.com, he took them and did the digital paint over to make them look like they were running around through hell, and it's all scary and on fire and stuff, which is very cool. So having that resource, Matt, basically, is a big benefit. And then also he was using water washable resin, Elegoo brand water washable resin, which is slightly less problematic as far as you don't need to have isopropyl alcohol and all that kind of stuff. Also, the smell is reduced as well. So I've got everything I need. I just need to basically, there's a little room underneath the sunroom in the basement that I'm going to be using, I think, to set up my printer, and I'm going to try to vent it properly, or at least semi-properly, and all that kind of stuff. But it's in progress. So yeah, I am going down that road. The fact that it's no longer super smelly stuff, and the fact that you don't have to use isopropyl alcohol anymore if you want to use that stuff, and those prints, the water washable Elegoo stuff, were spectacular, and I was really happy with them. So looking forward to that eventually. Yep. What happens to the Servants of the Abyss from the Blackstone Fortress? Gosh, I hope that they put stats for them in the new stuff, because they're pretty cool. Let's see. When we had bespoke kill teams like the Star Striders and the Gellerpox, it was super disappointing to me that they didn't get more. It's a nice space to experiment in. I guess I wasn't surprised that they weren't going to add to that. That was, again, like a single off, here's this rule, this box, the Rogue Trader box, and here's the stuff, and there you go. Now, the question will be, and it's interesting, will the Servants of the Abyss, which was the Chaos dudes from Blackstone Fortress, and will the Gellerpox and the Star Striders, which are the two sides from Rogue Trader, will they end up in the Compendium? I hope so, because otherwise people who like to run those armies, those groups, will be kind of bummed out. So I hope that they put that stuff in there. I think it would be a good idea. If you're going to make a compendium, it should... Compend? I don't think that's a word. I think I made that up. But it should be pretty all-inclusive, in my opinion. Otherwise, it's just a book of army lists that could or might not actually be complete. But a compendium is like bringing a whole bunch of things together into one place. That's the whole concept. So I hope that that's what they do. You know what I mean? What kind of updates to the campaign system would you like to see? I know you recently did a video on campaigns and wargames. I personally wouldn't mind seeing a campaign map included. Yeah, I think a map would be good. I think more choices and benefits to upgrade your individual folks in between games. I don't want to necessarily be like, oh, cool, this guy got a rocket launcher now, because you're not going to then go and glue a rocket launcher onto him and paint it, and but I think that Stargrave did this really smartly. What they did is that you have these different classes. So let's say you're a recruit. One of your henchmen is a recruit. That means that they basically carry a pistol. You can't give a recruit any other kind of weapon other than a pistol. But when a recruit gets upgraded in between missions and stuff like that, and they get a new weapon, well, because they carry a pistol, they get a better kind of pistol, which means you don't have to go in there and rip that pistol off and give them like a carbine or a sniper rifle or anything like that. You're not making me have to remodel anything on the actual model. Back in the day with like Gorka Morka, I was talking to a guy recently at the shop, and he was talking about how like when he would play Gorka Morka in between missions, and that's the old GW game where it's just basically orcs on orcs. This guy now has a cool robot arm. So he would actually take and model up a new robot arm and either make a new model with the robot arm and then take the old model and just chuck it in a box and go, well, maybe eventually I'll need that again. And so he's like got a box of like the low level people before they got upgraded, and that's, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. Once I've built and painted and everything like that, if I'm going to upgrade, I don't want to have to remodel the actual model. I just want to be like, cool, now this pistol has a better range, or it does more damage, or it does this, or it does that, or whatever, and then be able to kind of tweak and change those folks as it goes. I like that concept a lot. So yeah, we'll see. I want data on Gaunt's Ghosts. Oh yeah, no, Gaunt's Ghosts ought to be in there in my opinion. That'd be great. Let's see here. I think GW sells BSF, Blackstone Fortress cultists in the Chaos Space Marines section. Yeah, they might. That could be kind of cool. All the miniatures from the Kill Team Rogue Trader are now my crews for my Stargrave games. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's not a bad idea at all. I could see that also with Blackstone Fortress to some degree as well. That's very cool. Yeah. I personally doubt that out-of-production teams like Star Striders, Gellerpox, and Servants of the Abyss will not get rules. I doubt that out-of-productions will not get rules? Well, I hope you're right. However, some of them may get re-released in boxes and their rules later. I would like to see that too. Yeah, I would love to see them. I mean, they've probably, I would assume they still have the molds for a bunch of that stuff. Crank out more of those things, you know what I mean? Compile is the word you were looking for. You compile a compendium. You don't compend a compendium? Do you compile a compendium? Probably not. All right. Well, you're probably right. The way Necromunda does it, once you advance something to the point that they get more weapons, you maintain separate cards for each loadout, separate models, etc. Yeah. See, I don't like the separate models thing. I don't like, once I've built and made this dude, let's just make it so that, you know, sure. Is it fudging it a little bit by saying, oh yeah, no, that pistol that he's got, it's way better than it used to be. Sure, it is, you know. But I'm personally not a fan of having to like sit down and like build a new model and paint a new model just because this guy's got a cooler gun now or a jetpack or something like that. You know what I mean? That's a personal preference. I mean, that was part of the design decision we did with Brain in Hell, was that, you know, your upgrades and things like that are generally either you go from being a lesser demon to a greater demon to a superior demon, but that doesn't mean you have to get larger or anything like that. You're just, you know, you have more experience. And then you have the essences, which are basically soul energy that there's no need to model. And then there's relics, but even the relics could just be like anything. They could be something that's, you know, it's a belt buckle. I don't know, you know, whatever. So yeah, that was kind of the way we wanted to do that, because I'm a big fan of, I want to upgrade my guys, but I don't want to have to manually, physically upgrade the models. You know what I mean? This is what I don't care for about skirmish games that include character progression. If the character gets new equipment, I would need to modify or paint a whole new model. See, that's the thing. That's why I don't want to. That's why I think it's a smarter idea to try to not do that. You know, if maybe now they've got armor, you know, if they've got armor, now they get new armor, maybe it's just better armor, but it doesn't have to look any different. It's got a new technology to it, some sort of nanocarbon weave, which is a thing I just made up, I think. You know, whatever, and you could do that and then not have to go in and redo and change and tweak the models themselves, the actual physical model. I guess that's where magnets come in handy. I don't know how magnets work. I got Stargrave PDF this week. Want to use the Wild West Exodus, not Firefly crew. Oh, that'd be kind of cool. I could see that. Thinking about picking up some Pro-Acryl transparent paints. Are they like regular washes? Have you used them? I have used them. They are not like regular washes. They're a little bit more along the line of glazes. So like a wash is designed, you kind of slop it on there, it gets into the crevices, darkens things up and stuff, and is in theory supposed to sort of pull, not like contrast where it pulls away from the peaks, but it's not supposed to color the like flat areas too much. It does, but it's not supposed to do it as much as, say, a contrast paint might, or that kind of thing. Glazes are designed to not really, they will pool a little bit in the crevices, but really glazes are designed to be layered repeatedly over and over and over again to kind of build up like a gradient and stuff like that in areas and stuff. So the transparent paints, at least the way I've used them, has been a little bit more like their glazes. So there's that. But I think that Jason from Monument Hobbies has got some videos or maybe even blog posts or something that explain more about how to use them. But they're not washes. Yeah. Let's see here. Hey, Adam. now you have experience of designing a game. How has that changed the way you look at new game systems as they come out? Love the content all these years. Hope you had a good birthday. Well, thank you. I mean, how has it changed the way you look at new game systems as they come out? I mean, I kind of pay attention a little bit more towards, well, okay, a couple of things here. Number one, Vince did the majority of the mechanics. We worked together on it, and I would like throw out ideas, and he would figure out how the actual math works and stuff like that, and how the actual rubber would meet the road. But Vince is more of the rules mechanics. So when I look at rules mechanics, I'm still not necessarily seeing the matrix and getting all that math floating around my head and all that stuff. I'm just like, well, that sounds kind of fun. But I'm still just as lousy, I think, at strategy as ever. So I don't think that's been fixed in any way. But I do look at a lot of games and look at choices for the way that layout happened. I look at like ideas about like, you can sometimes see like, especially with Games Workshop, in some situations you can look at it and go, I have a suspicion I know what they're going to do next and what they're going to release next, because then this will make more money and they're a big corporation and that's what they have to do and that kind of stuff. With small companies like us, it's a different story, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think, like I said, I don't think it's changed things much. Plus, I've been designing games. I first designed, the first game that I designed with my friend Peter was back in 1992. So this is technically not my first rodeo. It's just my first rodeo in a while. I haven't designed anything or produced anything or published anything for quite some time. But probably since the early 2000s was the last time that we produced anything. But then there was this long kind of hiatus, and then that's when I reached out to Vince, and so yeah, and that's been a lot of fun. And we were talking on Thursday night, we're already starting to, like, we know what the next game's going to be for the most part, at least in theme and in story and in stuff like that a little bit. So we're already starting to work on that. But we'll probably start working in earnest on the next game, I think like in August or September is the kind of the plan. But we are currently working on, for Reign in Hell, the free expansion, which will be the ability to play, there'll be a 6 scenario add-on that allows you to play it, and you play that scenario solo and co-op. Well, not at the same time, solo or co-op. And it'll be 6 scenarios, and it's a story, so you don't just play, like, randomly roll a d6 and go, oh, we're playing the 4th one. You play the first one, and then the second one, and the third one, and there's a story that kind of goes along with it. So yeah, we'll be releasing that end of this month, potentially early August. But yeah, that's the plan. So it's actually Vince is playtesting it this weekend. So yeah, the nice thing about doing solo games is you can playtest it by yourself. I mean, he's going to have other people look at it too, but you know, it's a little bit easier, especially now that lockdown's being lifted and stuff like that. But yeah. Do you think that the Amazon Lord of the Rings series will affect GW's Middle-earth strategy battle game line in terms of keeping it in production? It might. That's a good question. I don't know. Let's see. A clown once told me that magnets work because of miracles. Yeah, I think the clowns are they know about magnets. How do you feel about some of the rumored rule changes? Changes to stats that make the game less 40k light and make it its own game. Will this hurt Kill Team as an entry point? I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. I'm of several minds on it. I liked Kill Team, regular plain old Kill Team. You know, the one that came out in 2018. I liked it quite a bit. I had no problem with the wounds thing. So I'm not one of the people that was like clamoring for like, we got to change this because it's not. So I'm looking forward to giving it a try and seeing what it looks like. I also like Warcry, so I'm not like, oh, it's got to be just like the bigger version of the game, but slightly tweaked. You know, I don't believe that Warcry needs to basically just be Age of Sigmar light. So we'll see how this all works out. But I didn't dislike the old version, so you know, I know some people for whatever reason hated it, and I don't understand why. But you know, people have different opinions about things, and that's fine. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to checking it out, though. Any thoughts on an expansion or supplement for Reign in Hell and having an Angel Cider Force? No. No, I guess that's the straight up portion of it. The reason I think is because it's not, Reign in Hell is not the biblical Judeo-Christian hell. It's a different dimension. There are these creatures there we refer to it as hell. We refer to it as, or them as, demons, because when they would come through, it's just, yeah, they'd come to Earth and stuff like that, and that just sort of dovetailed into the religions that were already kind of going and all this stuff. Good. So, but they're not, there's no Lucifer, there's no named characters as far as, like, you know, from the Bible or anything kind of stuff like that. So then to bring in angels would be a different story altogether. I mean, that would be, yeah. But no, we weren't really planning on that. Like I said, the expansion is going to be, give you the ability to play solo. So you can play the different 6 scenarios as you go along solo, or you can play them co-op as well. And you're going to be basically fighting, you're not going to be fighting against other cabals, you're going to be fighting against different kind of creatures that are also denizens of this dimension. But they're not particularly, they're not demons per se. They're like, you know, just swarms of creatures and things like that, and different stuff and whatever. So yeah, but yeah, it's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it. Premade Sticks is such a stupid approach to a tabletop game that already uses the simplicity of tape measures. I don't know. I mean, in certain situations. So there's a game that I'm a fan of called Song of Blades and Heroes. Measurement in Song of Blades and Heroes is done via sticks. But the reason for that they do it is because the game can be played either 28mm scale or 15mm scale. So instead of them having to say, your range on this person is this long or this long if you're playing 15mm, they just tell you your range is long stick, medium stick, or short stick. And then depending on which scale you're playing in, you make your own sticks. Just get yourself a dowel or whatever, a pencil, I don't know, cut it off. And so then that way they don't have to constantly explain the difference between the 2 scales. They just do everything in a length of stick. And then depending on whether you're playing 15mm or 28mm, then you just use the right sticks. And it's fine. Now, obviously, this game is not being done that way. There's no scale differences. But I don't know. I'm still withholding, you know, on why that. Like, I'm a big fan of using tape measures. I'll be perfectly honest. I got no problem with it. I think it's just fine. It's great. But I mean, if you look at Star Wars Legion, if you look at, I'm pretty sure there's sticks in the Marvel game, right? Like, that's becoming a thing. And I don't quite understand it completely, but I'll give it a try and see what it looks like. So yeah, I'm not going to say no. We refer to them as demons. They refer to themselves as Dennis. Very possibly, yes. Greater Dennis. That's, yeah. No, I think that you guys are right. I'm totally think you guys got it right. I'll let Vince know. Do you think the new digital service that comes in August will make the need to buy all the rulebooks obsolete? Probably not, unfortunately. Supposedly all the books as well as shows, called Warhammer Plus. Yes, I've heard of Warhammer Plus. I have a suspicion that I don't know this for sure, but I think that what you'll get access to, I think with Warhammer Plus, and I don't know this for sure, I think you'll get access to the army lists and the stats and all that stuff in the different, whether you do Age of Sigmar Army Builder or you do the 40K Army Builder app. I think that you get those through Warhammer Plus, but you don't get just like a PDF of each book. That'd be awesome if you did, but you won't. Not for $5 a month or whatever it is. So if you still want the information, the fluff, all the background and stuff like that, you probably still got to buy the books. But if you buy the books, then you get a code, which you can then put into the... So I don't understand a lot of it, to be perfectly honest, why they're doing it that way. Because right now, from my understanding, the codex is you get a code, it's in the back, and then you put that code in, and then now it unlocks all of the stats, just the stats, nothing else, in the Army Builder thing. So there you go. But... So I don't know. I haven't paid super crazy close attention to Warhammer Plus because I don't think I'm in the demographic for it. Because it sounds like basically you either need to play Age of Sigmar or 40K or both for it to be really useful, and I don't play really either so much. I mean, I will be playing some Age of Sigmar hopefully towards the end of the year. I'm actually going to start working on a 1,000-point Night Haunt force, because Sam and I are hoping to play in a small, very casual tournament. And so, but anyway, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I don't mind a beer and pretzels version of 40K. I feel it will help bring in new players. Absolutely. All 3 of these games, Kill Team, Warcry, Warhammer Underworlds, they are all purposefully built and designed to help bring new people into the hobby. Back in 2014 and previously, before the launch of Age of Sigmar, you pretty much, if you wanted to get into Games Workshop, for the most part, you either had to buy and build and paint a 1,500 at least point army of 40k or something roughly the same size in Warhammer Fantasy. And that's a big hill to climb for a lot of folks. But when it's, hey, back when Shadespire first came out, $60, you get 2 forces and the board and the dice and all the cards and everything you need, and you can start playing. And if you want to paint those little guys, you can, but you don't have to. They're in different colored plastic, so you can at least tell them apart really easily. That was a great value proposition. And then when you drop on that person later on, those guys that you got, there's stats for them for Age of Sigmar, so you could put them into the Age of Sigmar army that you might build if you decide to go down that road. Like, that's a vector to get people into the hobby, and that's like nearly everything they do now. Excuse me, nearly everything they do now is about getting people into the hobby, and I think that's a good thing, and it's way better than it used to be. So, yeah. It's so they don't have to pay Apple or anyone else royalties for selling in their shop. That could be too. I could see that. The vault in Warhammer Plus is going to be old campaign books, mainly so that you can get the old lore and such. I like gauges, says Trey. I just don't want them to be a necessity at this point. Legion and whatnot can get away with it because they are new systems. I feel like 40k is too established to make the gauges desirable. Well, it's not. That's the thing. It's not 40k. It's Kill Team. And since if they were like, okay, cool, we're going to make Kill Team that's just like it was before but now has gauges, that would have been weird. But because they're tweaking it quite a bit and adding the gauges, yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It'll be interesting. Excuse me. How was your Warcry game with Mr. Lenz the other day? It was good. It was... for me, it was a bit of the blowing the cobwebs off a little bit, and so that was helpful. But it was my Skaven warband of all plague monks, the 13 as they're known, because there's 13 of them. I painted those guys on Twitch, and he was running his untamed beasts, and they're just like a standard kind of Warcry group, and he was concerned. Because my guys have got like 6-inch move and whatnot and all that kind of stuff and everything. And their attacks are real swingy. So like I basically throw 3 dice when I attack. Base. And my strength is not crazy high and his toughness is, so I'm still, in many situations I'm hitting on 5s generally, which is, okay. So I'm hitting on 5s, I'm throwing 3 dice. But if I crit, which is to say roll a 6, I go from doing 1 damage to 5 damage per dice. So, and that's on one little rat dude. Their crits are very swingy, which is interesting. Unfortunately, we played the scenario where you have to kill the other person's leader, and then I, through some very dumb placement, and again underestimating how far you can move on that small board in some situations, I kind of got killed in turn 3. Sort of quickly, but it was fun. It was fun. I'm looking forward to doing it again. We talked a little bit about potentially doing maybe some sort of at least battle report, maybe like a campaign battle reports. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, we're trying to plan on some stuff like that as well. Skirmish style games are great. You can have a variety of warbands. They cost less compared to the whole army. They play faster, and I think you can be more fluent with the rules. I agree on all those points, honestly. That's why I like skirmish games. I like having a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I refer to it as buffet style, which eventually none of us will know what buffet means anymore because I think buffets are going to go away. Yeah, it's just the fact that I don't have to, I've never painted Skaven before, so I'm like, I want to do some Skaven. Well, I did 13 Skaven, and there you go, boom. As opposed to doing an entire Age of Sigmar army of Skaven, which is going to be far more than 13 models. So, yeah, I like that kind of stuff specifically about skirmish games. There was an amazing collectible card game called Pirates. Pirates of the Spanish Main is what it was called. You got a pack and you would pop out the parts of the pirate ship to make these little pirate boats, and they used sticks for movement and cannon fire. They didn't use sticks for movement and cannon fire. They used the cards. So you would pop out if I remember correctly, yeah, you would pop out, like, you would get like a little credit card, right, in there, and they were perforated, and you would pop out all the parts for the ship, and then kind of slot tab A and slot B and all that, and build little tiny pirate ships, and it was a super fun game. I've got a ton of it in the basement. Well, not a ton. I've got a box with this big, full of a whole bunch of them. But then you use the long side or the short side of the card that you punch them out of to track like how ranges and stuff like that, and it made perfect sense. It was a lot of fun. We used to play it at the bar, because we would like be in a booth at this bar that we used to go to all the time, and we would just, and the table size was perfect, and we would just be sitting there, having our drinks and hanging out, me and another friend, and would just 15 little tiny sailboats all over the thing, and then the waitress would come by and be like, "What are you guys doing?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, it's fine." But anyway, yeah, it was a good time. Let's see. I don't really see the problem with sticks. They will have a certain length, and I could bet they translate well to inches. Yeah, I kind of like the stick thing in some situations. Song of Blades and Heroes does it. Do I have a pen? Yes, I do. So Song of Blades and Heroes does it interestingly, where when you move, so here's your model, right? And you're looking at it top down from the tabletop, except anyway. So when you move, you actually don't move from here to here, kind of like you do in every other game where you measure from the front of the model to where the front of the model is going to go. You actually leapfrog the entire stick. Like, that's built into the rules. They tell you start here and you go to the end of the stick. So you're getting the extra length of whatever the width of your base is to your movement. So bigger models get to move a little bit further because they're bigger and they probably have longer legs and stuff. So that's a smart system. The other thing too, though, is that if you want to go around a corner or something like that, you have to move this far. But you don't have to move to the end of the stick. You could move here to this portion of the stick. Wherever you end up, you have to be touching the stick. So if you want to go like sharper on a corner, you actually have to use two. Like if you are moving, let's say this is a medium stick and you can move up to 2 medium, you'd have to waste almost your first medium to get to here and then do this to go around this corner, right? So it's an interesting system, and I kind of like that, and it just gives you different... It gives you slightly different capabilities within the game. Now, if you were doing it just straight with tape measures, you'd be like, oh, I want to move 6 inches, and I just bend the tape measure, go around this corner, that's fine too. But this is just a different style of play, and I kind of liked the concept. But it depends. If the stick is just basically a tape measure, kind of, then I don't understand the point. Then, yeah, but if you do something interesting like that kind of movement thing, then in my mind it makes sense. But we'll see how it goes. Let me see here. Hey, Dana, how you doing? Aren't the gauges 1, 2, 3, 6 inches in size, so people who really want to use tape measures will probably be fine? Yes, but there's also some sort of symbols on them. So instead of saying use the 2-inch, it said because if you look at the video or whatever, actually, let's see, do we have a picture? Let me put the button here, and then we'll go over here. So I don't know if we can blow this up. Can we? I mean, I can fake it. Plus, 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 plus. And then we'll do this. So on this, you'll notice there's a circle, a square, and a triangle. So instead of saying short, medium, and long, they're going to tell you, oh, this guy gets to shoot. And then this over here looks like it's a pentagram. It's not a hexagram. Yeah, pentagram, right? The pentagon. Not a pentagram. That's a different thing altogether. No, there's a pentagon over here. So you got a pentagon over here. You got a circle there, a square there, and a triangle. So basically they're going to tell you, oh, this guy can't move very quickly. He can only go 2 triangles. Or this gun can go 3 pentagons. I don't know why, frankly. Maybe it's to help with languages, like it's easier for them to spread, kind of like they did that with Warcry, where you've got all those icons, so therefore they don't have to use any words, except I can't tell the difference between most of the icons. It's a kind of a pain in a lot of situations. Like, oh, this icon's a skull? Okay, cool. So are 12 other ones. Again, squares, triangles, that's a little bit easier. They could have just done this all with skulls, and then I don't know how we would have fixed that problem. But but yeah, so like that like seems to be what they're doing. It's not so much that this is just like a normal template like you use in a lot of other games where you're like, well, you know that this is 6 inches and there's little rulers. This is actually like there's like a symbology that's attached to it, so you know. And again, like I said, it might be to help localize. Basically, output it easier in other languages is what I'm trying to say. If you've played Warcry at all, you've bought a new set, and then there's a ton of different cards in there that are in different languages, but the main stat cards have no words on them, so therefore, there you go. But I don't know if that's actually the answer or not. While we're here, why don't I just do... Well, excuse me. Why don't we just look at some pictures? Why not? How about that there? So, so that was the Twitch stream that went for like about an hour and 15 minutes, roughly. The new logo is kind of close along to the new 40K logo, which, you know, I mean, it's fine. It's odd they're just calling the entire new set Octarius, but that's fine. And then you've got this kind of stuff. So you've got this very orky terrain, and you've got, what is it, a bunch of dice and some templates and some other jazz and some cards, it looks like. The little tokens and stuff like that, I get the feeling, because the rules are changing quite a bit, that it's no longer like, oh, I'm readied, or I'm charging, or I'm like, I get the feeling, I was looking at those tokens quite closely when they were showing them off a little bit, and I didn't show them off as much as I would have liked, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of real fanciness going on there, kind of like there was. Here's a bunch of the new models. I should have that turned off. New orc dudes. This guy's got just his nose hanging out. I'm going to call that guy Kenny, I think. And then, again, here's like the whole board set up. These should, like, when I click on them, they should pop up, but they don't. There you go. There's your terrain. Yeah, so we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, technically it's 10 guys in a medical box. For the Krieg, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You've got 10 orcs, a grot, and a bomb squig. So that's in the box. You got the core book, you got the manual, and the manual in this situation has the stats for the orcs in the box and the Krieg in the box, from what we can tell. And then you've got your dice and your gauges. You've got some tactical ops cards, which we don't know what those are, but they're probably like the tactics cards. I would hope that they're kind of like that thing from the previous game. You know, like, you know, these are the tactics that this specialist can use and that kind of specialist can use, but we don't know. And then there's, like I said, the terrain, the tokens, and the, again, 30 by 22 board. So all that stuff's going to come in the box. Then they start talking about other stuff that, you know, whatever, 40K. That's fine. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how this stuff kind of works out. And again, like we were talking about before, what the price is going to be, which we don't know yet. I'm going to click on that, get the chat back. There we go. I loved pirates. They still have many, many small ships and tiny dice. Oh, that was the thing too. Yeah, you got like a magic card booster pack that had some, and plus it came with dice, and they were little tiny 5mm 6-siders. They were super cool. Let's see here. Also for beginners, because you don't have to remember all the numbers of the models. Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah. Let's see here. I'm surprised GW hasn't renamed Inch's Skulls. Would be appropriate. That could be that. They're probably calling it Octarius to avoid questions about if it's a new edition or not. Yeah, I mean, that could be a marketing thing. It's kind of like when Apple is like, oh, hey, this is the new iPad. And everyone's like, you mean the third iPad? And they're like, no, it's the new iPad. iPad 3? No, we're not calling it iPad 3. It's the new iPad. And everyone's like, all right, well, we're going to call it iPad 3. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Yeah. Sometimes marketing comes up with ideas, and then everyone just is like, okay, cool, we're going to ignore that because it doesn't make any sense. It's been their trend to give new boxes a name like Indominus and Dominion. Yeah, no, that's true too. That's a good point. Will they sell a board with a layer of skulls underground? So using... Oh, they sold. Yeah, the old... I don't know if they still sell it or not. Maybe they do. But the old... the original Realm of Battle board was a big, huge plastic 4x6 board. It was made of 2-foot by 2-foot squares. And there were parts where there were like cracks in the ground, and it was just all skulls underneath there because you were on a evidently skull-based planet. Yeah. It's interesting that GW seems to be committed to multi-game campaigns. They used to do those and I'd be jazzed for the ones with the Kill Team component of 40K one. Oh yeah, no, I think that there are obviously plenty of folks out there, a decent number. I would say it's not as big as maybe they think sometimes, but there's a decent number of folks out there who are interested in playing one-off competitive play, tournament play, that kind of stuff. That's fine. I would say that the vast majority of folks don't play in big tournaments, and they want to play something that is more story-driven and has a beginning and a middle and an end, and you play multiple games. If you just play one game and then just play one game again and then just play one game again, nothing wrong with that, but I personally think it's more interesting, and I think a lot of other people are finding that as well, that the more campaign style games are more interesting to do. Octarius is a sector. Oh, I know what Octarius is. I'm just like, it's odd that like they just name the box for the new, completely, here's the new game, you know. I would thought they would have called it Kill Team or, you know, something like that, but, you know, I don't know. Like, they didn't have a secondary name for the original core box. Honestly, I would have thought they would have called it, like, Kill Team Core Box or something like that. But that's whatever. I like the stick thing that cuts down movement around corners. In life, we all get a slow down around corners. See, that's the thing, too. Yeah, you don't run full speed around a corner. I mean, well, you can, but you probably fall over. I'm at work right now, and the dogs I work with are now just relaxing thanks to your voice, Uncle Adam. You are a lifesaver. Well, I'm glad I'm able to... make dogs sleepy, I guess. That's something. That's good to hear. Absolutely. Let's see here. Some would call that 2.0. Most people wouldn't. Well, I mean, technically, and this is what's very interesting to me. So, like I said in Friday's video, I was looking at the the Gen Con website, and they were talking about Kill Team 2nd Edition, and I was like, oh my god, Kill Team, new version of Kill Team confirmed. And then I went and did a little bit of research and found out that actually the current version of Kill Team is referred to as 2nd Edition by nearly nobody, but it is technically referred that way in some places online, like Lexiconum. And I think also on Board Game Geek is where I saw that as well. And then I was like, oh, okay. Well, now there's a new version of actual Kill Team that's being released that will be out before mid-September Gen Con. So now I'm wondering, were they talking about the actual 2nd edition, which is the current edition, or were they calling the new version 2nd? It's very confusing, and we don't know yet. So I guess we'll see. Mr. Squirrel says, I like you and I like your content. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You are one of the YouTubers who got me into 40K. Well, I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you have a good time with the hobby. I do. I mean, not specifically 40K. I don't play that too much these days, but I do paint a bunch of the models for a lot of different things, like Kill Team, and other games as well. But yeah, I think it's a great hobby, wargaming. I am a big fan of both the gaming and the hobby portion. A little bit more the hobby portion, I think, just because I'm not particularly good at the gaming portion. I'm okay at it, but I'm not tournament level by any stretch of the imagination, but I still have a good time. So yeah, absolutely. So let's see here. I think they called it Kill Team Buy It for the Terrain. The original box was definitely Buy It for the Terrain because it was great terrain. I mean, the models were fine, but they were already models that had been out there before. You know, they were AdMech and they were Genestealer cults, but the terrain was spectacular. And of course, I wanted the book and all that other junk. I got to be honest. The terrain that they're showing off for this new version, this new box, doesn't particularly do it for me. I'm just not into orc terrain. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. The orc aesthetic is, I like orcs. I like their vehicles very frequently. But the terrain, yeah, I don't know. It's fine. Like, it's well done. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's bad terrain. I'm saying aesthetically it is not fit to my tastes, I guess. So, you know, that's fine. I think the Krieg models look good. I'd still recommend buying some historical World War I minis instead for the sake of price. Well, it'd be hard to get like those fancy las guns and stuff. But with some kit bashing, you could probably do it though. Let's see. Like someone said, this is a limited time box like Dominion and Indominus, hence the name. Once 2.0 launches, they'll probably have a different name. Well, I mean, technically okay. When they launched the original Kill Team box, that was also limited. And then they just never came out with a second box. I mean, they sort of did. They never came out with just like, this is the main core box. Eventually, they came out with that box that had like alleged Space Wolves and some Tau in it and a little bit of terrain. But that was a good difference of time later on down the road. So I guess there's that. But really, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, if you want to play Kill Team, you need the book. Well, now you need 2 books, but you need the core book, and now you're going to need a compendium to have the rule or the stats for whatever army you want to pick. But back, in the current version right now, you basically just needed the core book, unless you wanted to play with elites, or unless you wanted to play with commanders, or unless you wanted to play with one of the armies that weren't in that book. But if you were like, I got a bunch of Imperial Guard, and I've got some terrain already, and I want to play Kill Team, that's all you really needed to do, You needed the book. It's $40. So I'm sure that if you buy the 2 books going forward, and you don't buy all the terrain and all that stuff, because you're like, oh, I don't like Orcs, I don't like Krieg, I don't like that terrain, or I don't like dice. Now, the question is that, are they going to sell the rulers and all that junk separately? That's always an issue, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, if you like tokens, you can get away with. You can just be like, all right, cool, I don't need to have the tokens from the box. I'll use whatever. I'll be like, okay, this token means this and this token means that, and that's fine. And you can get fancy, get a little crafty with it, and make tokens yourself or whatever, 3D print them, whatever. That's fine. Admittedly, if you're going down that road, probably people will 3D print the rulers too, but that's the thing, is I'm hoping they're going to sell the rulers and stuff separately, because if not, people will be like, well, how do I get to, that's the only thing that I don't like. That's one of the reasons why I don't like rulers and gauges, is because if you just want to use a tape measure, it's a little bit harder. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure somebody will just measure the gauge and be like, square means this and circle means this and blah, 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 and that's not, but it's a pain in the butt. Now, on the other hand, them having another little thing to sell, if you don't want to buy the box, well, you could buy the gauges and the tokens separately. I mean, they've sold those cards separately in a lot of situations, so I'm sure they'll go down that road, but we'll see how it goes. If they release a NIDS box with NID terrain, it would go over huge. NID. Probably. I could see that. I think that some Tyranid terrain just in any situation would go over real well. Mr. Adam, are you a fan of them releasing individual Kill Team starter boxes with individual tokens and measure sticks so that the newer player could pick them up instead of the 2018 scalpers? I mean, yeah, I think that if they were to do that... Now, the downside, though, is if you're like, okay, I already bought the big box, and now I want this, but I don't need any more tokens or any more... well, tokens is tokens. They're cardboard. It's fine. But I don't need any more of those plastic doohickeys in there, the gauges and the rulers and stuff like that. I'm not sure how they're going to handle that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do it. Like, if you don't get this initial box, like you're not interested, or you didn't find out about it till too late, or scalpers, or whatever the issue is. Although, from what I understand with Indominus, they kind of tried to work against scalpers to some degree, at least automated bot scalpers, by making it so you had to like log in and all that kind of stuff, or whatever the deal was. There was a whole thing that they did. I didn't go on the first day to try to get Dominion and all that stuff, but I know that there was things that they did to try to cut that down, which is good. It's a good thing they're making the effort. Companies like Sony and Xbox not doing that, so that's also great. Yeah, but I think that that's a good idea, absolutely. They might do faction-themed rulers with the data cards. Could be. That could be something, yeah. I could see that. They sell the plastic tokens and bits needed for Adeptus Titanicus separately, and or a relatively small box along with the AT rulebook. Yeah, I mean, I could see them kind of parceling that stuff out, hopefully. That would be smart of them to do. Let's see here. I can't see the gauges being mandatory, especially since they're on the same sprue as some of the Orc terrain. Like I said, they'll probably release them separately as well. But I do see them being, like, if they were just like, oh, this is this many inches and this is, then that'd be a different story. But the fact that they're actually, like, there's little symbols for saying this is circle, this is triangle, this is square, it leads me to believe that they're trying to make it, they're sort of trying to take the numbers out of it, but I could be wrong on that. GW mentioned something yesterday, everything from the box will be separately available. Sure, probably. As we've seen in the past, sometimes they mention things in the Twitch stream which don't actually come to pass or were not necessarily 100% right. You know, these guys are basically, you know, Adam and Eddie are not following a script per se. I mean, they have notes, obviously, and stuff like that, but they don't have a teleprompter. There's times, I think, when sometimes things come out one way, and then people hear that and then go, okay, well, this is now confirmed, and then it turns out that that was not exactly 100% the case. So hopefully we're all right, and hopefully they got everything right first try. But sometimes we would have to look at these things and go, well, maybe that was a mistake, or maybe that was they misspoke. I misspeak all the time, Lord knows. So, you know, and I'm a professional. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, we'll see how it goes. The orc terrain is beautiful, and I'm one step closer to a 2K orc table for my good boys. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think it's bad terrain. Absolutely, it's very well done. I can't think of a time that I've seen a model from Games Workshop in a very long time where I'm like, that's a bad model. It may not fit my aesthetic. It may be like, I think it's. If I say something's ugly, it's not that I'm saying, oh, it's poorly sculpted or poorly made or poorly. It's just like, I don't like the look of it, Like I don't like Harlequins. I don't like space clowns. It's not my aesthetic style. But if you like them, great. I will show them to you and say, this is an example of a well-sculpted model, and here's why: the proportions and this and the way that the mold line got, or not the mold line, but the gap got hidden here. But then I will also show you models that I'm like, I like this model a lot. These mold lines are garbage, or these gaps are poorly placed. But it's still a good model, or even it's a model I like the look of. I'm just angry about this one shoulder pad because it's got a thing run down the middle and I can't seem to gap fill it, and it's a whole thing. So, but in general, Games Workshop definitely knows what they're doing with sculpting. I can show you other models in other companies where I'm like, this is gonna break. Like, this is not right. This is screwy, whatever. This arms aren't that long. That's a weird proportion. That's also bad sometimes. But there are plenty of models out there from Games Workshop that I'm like I don't like those Zangors, the bird dudes. I just don't like bird dudes. I'm just, I've never met any bird dudes in real life. I'm sure they're probably fine, but I wouldn't date one. I don't know if that makes any sense. I just don't like the look of them. It's an aesthetic thing, and I'm just like, they kind of creep me out a little bit. I don't know what it is. Bird dudes kind of creep me out a little bit. So, I don't know. There you go. Let's see. 2.0, 3.0. At what point does it become something new if they completely change the rules? Is it a new version? Like when Macintosh went to Mac? I mean, yeah, this will definitely be a new version because it's a completely rebuilt rule system from the ground up. The reason that the current version is technically called 2.0 is because, it's called second edition, technically, and the new version will technically be third version, is because there was a first edition. And I talked about it in the video on Friday. There was this box set that was sold that was Kill Team, and it had more of a red and black logo. It came with like 10 Tactical Marines and like 10 or 11 or 12 Tau. It had no terrain in it. It had an instruction booklet, but you still needed the base rules. Now, if I remember correctly, it did put one of the little skinny base rules books in there, but then you also still needed codices, not necessarily for those two armies. They at least gave you the stats for the two armies that were in that box. But if you wanted to play that version of Kill Team back in the day with, something else, you had to own a codex, and then they had like special rules. If you want to play Kill Team, you can't play like models that do this, and there's no vehicles, and they had all these stats on like what you could and couldn't use. Whereas when the new version of Kill Team came out back in 2018, they were like, look, here's all the information all in one book, which was nice. And then they added a lot more books to it. So, you get that. This is getting foul. Oh my goodness. You must have really hated Corvus Cabal for Warcry. Actually, I like the Corvus Cabal. But those people are dressed as birds. I'm 98% sure. They're like normal humans, but they're wearing bird costumes, kind of, as opposed to being a bird person. Birds are very Egyptian, and they'll fit well with Tzeentch. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that they do them. I'm just saying I don't want any. This is the thing. You know what I mean? Again, it makes complete sense to have Egyptian-style bird dudes hanging out with the Rubric Marines and all that stuff. I totally get it. And they're well-sculpted and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just like, ugh, I just don't like the look of them. Like again, it's just an aesthetic thing. Sometimes there's like certain colors you don't like. It doesn't make it a bad color, it just makes it a color you don't like. That kind of thing. Like I just don't like bright yellow, or I just don't like, baby blue, or whatever the deal is, that kind of thing. I would prefer some actual Beastmen in 40k flavor, like that in the Servants of the Abyss set. Oh yeah, no, the Beastmen are awesome. That's what's so weird, is I'm like, Birdmen, no. Beastmen, yes. I love the Beastmen, they're great. And the Beastmen that came in the Blackstone Fortress, that were basically sci-fi Beastmen, and that they had actual pistols and like, I don't know, chainswords, I guess. Those were great models, and I do dig them a lot. Do you think all the previous books for Kill Team will be obsolete? Yes. Well, mostly yes. I think that the scenarios that are in all those books will be usable, because scenarios are scenarios. Unless there's something that's very specifically tied to the actual rules, you can generally use scenarios all the time, which is why books like the chapter approved books for the yearly annual chapter approved books for 40K, or the General's Handbook for Age of Sigmar, sure, when the 2020 book comes out, now the 2019 book, portions of it are obsolete, points, costs, and all that other junk. But the scenarios are still generally pretty playable. You know what I mean? Like, scenarios are scenarios. Like, you could really, if you make things a little, I don't want to say generic, but if you're careful, you could easily produce a book of scenarios for miniature games, just in general, that people could buy, and then be like, hey, look, I just made a book of cool scenarios, and you could use them for any kind of game, that you wanted. Now, there are times when rules are specific to science fiction type things or fantasy type things, like a scenario that really shouldn't allow for ranged combat won't work in most sci-fi games, and that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's honestly not that hard to be able to still use those scenarios and things like that, down the road. But nearly everything else in the Elites book and nearly everything else in the Commander's book, yeah, that stuff's all basically going to be, because all the stats, like one of the reasons you buy Elites or Commanders is because you wanted to get the stats for the Elites or the Commanders. All the stats are completely changing. I'm not even talking about like, oh, we're changing this guy's wounds to be 2 instead of 1. It's like all of the categories are changing, is from what we can tell. So kind of like they did, there's nothing very, very much really in Warcry that seems to be the same type of stats in Age of Sigmar. But the current version of Kill Team, like, oh, these guys have got weapon skill 5, and they've got weapon skill 5 in 40K as well. Like, you look some of these stat lines and they would be very close. There might be just something that's tweaked here and there, that kind of stuff. So yeah, Space Goats are great. Does the new Kill Team book have everything you need in it, or will you have to buy things like codices? It looks like the core book is just the rules, and then they have mentioned there will be a compendium, which will then have all the stats for the different armies, we think. They've not really talked about that book. They didn't show that off at all. What they showed off in the Twitch stream yesterday was the core book that comes in the new box, and then there was a secondary book that basically had the stats and scenarios just for the models in that box. But they said that I think it's in the actual article, they mentioned that there will be a compendium on launch that will also then have all the army lists and the stats and all that jazz for probably, hopefully, all of the other current armies, including Sisters of Battle and Demons and all that other junk. So hopefully they'll do that. I'd prefer it if all factions rules were in the new Kill Team rulebook. I would too, I think. The only benefit to doing the compendium this way and keeping it separate is then technically they could just sell a new compendium in another year or two that has, and then they could skip doing the Kill Team annual. Like, I would rather, frankly, buy a new compendium that has a date on it than buy a Kill Team annual and then have to have my compendium, but then go look in the Kill Team manual to see if the points changed. You see what I'm saying? Just give me a new compendium, I'll buy it, and then now these points are all the points, as opposed to being like, okay, well, according to the compendium, the points here are 6. Yeah, there's 6 there too. This guy is 12. Oh no, here he's 13. Like, I don't want to have to do that. Just sell a new compendium. In that situation, then making the compendium separate kind of makes sense, because you could just, it's modular at that point. Whereas if it's a situation where you're, because basically there was no way to update the core rulebook in the current version of Kill Team, because you would have just had to buy a new core rulebook, which would have been the rules plus also the army lists, not including the ones that were missing. So yeah, it's a whole thing. Let me see here. Secretly, I'm a book nerd. I love books, so I like how these will all be separate, just so I can buy more books. I mean, I'm not a book nerd. I love having a whole bunch of different rule sets on my iPad. That being said, I can tell you from the last month and a week, or last month and 2 weeks maybe, that I've been amazed by how many folks have purchased the print version of Reign in Hell. Okay. So to be fair, we made it so that if you bought the print version, you got the PDF version for free. So there's that. That's a benefit. I get that. But I was just astounded by how many people went that way and have been buying. Like, we've been looking at the numbers and stuff like that, and it's a very surprising number of people that have bought the print version. So I've been really, I've been glad for that, certainly. But I still generally buy just the PDF version of most stuff like that when I go on to like Wargame Vault and places like that. Let's see. Kill Team, I want squats. That would be kind of cool. Yeah. Is Krieg a separate faction this time around, or reskinned Guard? I would assume they'd be part of the Guard, but I don't know. I don't think they're a separate faction. I guess it's possible. They might have decided to go down that road, but I would just think that they would be part of the Guard. I could be wrong. I think those Deathcore Krieg are awesome, but I don't like the Orcs or the terrain. It's really good that these will be available separately. See, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of people out there that think that the Orcs are awesome. I think the Orcs are really cool. I like the Krieg is fine. The Orcs, I think, are cool. They're very well done, and then they're all done. That's the thing. Everything's done well. It's just whether it's to your aesthetic taste. The Orcs are to my aesthetic taste. The Krieg are, and the terrain is not exactly to my aesthetic taste, but it's still, I think, well done terrain. I mean, I could be wrong. I guess when the time comes and it tries to build, like, here's the thing. There's a great piece of terrain that is to my aesthetic taste. It's called the Ophidian Archway, and it was for Age of Sigmar, but it was manufactured terribly. Like, you could not get that thing to go together without giant gaps where the pieces, like, it's big. It was one of the pieces of terrain that they had produced in China, and so I don't know if it like warped on the ship as it was coming back, or I don't know what the deal is. But try and put the Ophidian Archway together and not have giant gaps where any of the pieces go together. Everything is warped like crazy. I love the look of it if you can get it together properly and hide the gaps, which is very difficult to do, but you can do it technically with a bunch of extra work. It's a great looking piece, but it's a piece of garbage as far as the build is concerned. So there are times that sometimes even GW, again, it's well sculpted, it's just poorly manufactured. So there's all kinds of little options and tweaks and changes here. It's very interesting. Let me see here. It's gonna be funny. Oh, I missed that. Everything's scrolled. I like a physical book, just as I like 3D terrain. Making some Hell terrain right now. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I like. That's the thing too. Is I'm not a big fan of playing a skirmish game that's completely flat. I like there to be physical terrain. So that's one of the reasons why I've never been a big fan of like Pariah Nexus, Arena, even Rogue Trader. I kind of didn't like that board and just the stuff. Like the models were cool and everything like that, but if I want to play Kill Team, I want there to be little buildings and stuff like that, and it'd be up on a hill, or not a hill, but a catwalk shooting at it. Yeah, that's what I want. Are you attending MegaCon in Orlando, Florida next month? I am not. I don't know that I've heard of MegaCon before, but no, I am. That is not my plan. Then the first piece of travel that I'm going to be doing this year is going to be Gen Con in mid-September. That will be, I don't think I'm going to any other thing in August. So Gen Con, which normally is in August, but this year has been moved to mid-September. That'll be my first piece of travel, and we'll see how that goes. And then after that, I'm going to a small convention in October, late October, called Dragonfall, which is normally it's in Northern Illinois, but this year it's in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, as opposed to Lake Geneva, Switzerland, which is very different. So I'll be going to that one, and then I'm going to a small tournament in Northern Illinois with Sam, in theory. We're on the waiting list, so hopefully we'll get in. But we're going to that. It's called Holy Havoc, and that's going to be an Age of Sigmar doubles tournament, which is supposed to be super cash, as I've been told multiple times. But Vince will be there, and Tom, and a whole bunch of people and stuff, and so we're going to go to that. And then I think after that, the next event after that is going to be in January, end of January, when my plan is to actually get in a plane again for the first time in a long time and fly to Vegas for the Las Vegas Open. So let's see here. They mentioned Krieg being an elite-like units. I guess we'll find out in the next Guard Codex. Yeah, that could be too, yeah. Paperbook feels like value. I mean, I get that, but I also like being able to carry around 30 or 40 rule sets in a single iPad. And I like being able to search for words easily, which is nice too. So yeah, but I get it. I understand what you mean. They updated the Kill Team website with the new factions and names. Interesting. It wouldn't surprise me that part of the reason to launch a new edition is so that they can separate the rules from the armies, sort of like in 40k. That way they can modify the armies, but not the rules. I mean, there's part of that. I think the other reason they did it was because, A, it's been 3 years since the last launch, and they seem to be on a 3-year cycle with many of their games. I suspect that in let's see, when did Warcry come out? 2019, right? So 2019 is when it came out, so I would suspect probably next summer we'll see a new Warcry. Is that right? Warcry came out in 2019, 2020, 21, 22. Yeah, probably next summer we'll see a new version of Warcry. I hope I'm wrong, frankly, because I think it seems like it's too soon, but they do seem to be on a 3-year cycle on pretty much everything. It was 3 years for Age of Sigmar since the last version. It was 3 years for 40k for the last version. It's been 3 years now for Kill Team last version. So, yeah, we'll see, I guess. But the other reason is also, like I mentioned a couple of times, is because they also needed to make, it's this whole corporate thing about you always have to try to make more money than you did last year. And so 2020, they made a boatload of money because of Indominus and 9th edition and all that. So this year, to try to beat that, they've got to do, obviously, Age of Sigmar 3.0, which there was already probably in the plan. Again, talking about 3 years. And I guess they could have decided maybe we'll wait on new Kill Team because of pandemic, all that kind of stuff. But then they were like, but we need to get it out in 2021 because, again, trying to make more money than they did last year. That's, again, and this is not them being greedy or whatever. It's just when you get to the point where you have shareholders and all that kind of stuff, it's just a thing. Like, if you don't try to make more money than you did last year, I think you can get in trouble or something. I don't know. It's crazy. But there it is. I much prefer a hard copy, to be honest. It's nice to have the see that, and there's a lot of things in life where I am in the minority as far as like, oh, I like this thing, and everyone else is like, well, we don't like that thing. Like ice cream flavors and just all kinds of different things where I'm like, oh, you can't get that anymore because nobody else liked it besides me. That makes sense. Yeah, I've seen that happen time and time again. So when a lot of people are like, well, I really like the print version, and that's why and I'm like, I don't necessarily need the print version. I digress. I will agree. Well, not agree. I will basically. It made a lot of sense to us to be able to take the extra time because it does take extra work to make the print version. You have to build in bleeds around the edges, and there's a bunch of different layout tweaks and things like that. But we took the time to do that because we were pretty sure that would help it to sell. And there's a lot of games on the Wargame Vault website where they're just like, we're just going to make the PDF. And they haven't sold quite as well because there's not a print version to do. So we figured, why not? And it's worked out pretty well. Let's see. Is there a big difference between Kill Team and Warcry in terms of gameplay, or is it mainly in the armies and stats? We don't know yet, because the new rules for Kill Team, we don't know what they're like. The differences between the current version of Kill Team and Warcry are, very different. They're very different games. But we don't know what the new rules actually look like for the new Kill Team yet. They've just basically said the release is going to be in August, so that could be any one of 31 days. If we get a new Warcry, I want a better campaign system. Their campaign system is better than the current Kill Team one, but sure, I agree. I wouldn't mind seeing a better campaign system. I usually go to both, but this is just for the games. Nice. Yep. Personally, I buy the prints to read and learn the rules and take the PDF version with me for reference. I can understand that. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like the digital versions better if I could get a print version of the artwork. I'm weird like that. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I have kicked around the idea of making, of some of the artwork for Reign in Hell, making, like, prints that people could buy if they were interested. I need to find the right company to work with on that, but I've thought about it. Because, I mean, the art that Scott from Artist Empire did of the stuff that we that me and Vince, like the models that we painted, like this is one of them that's just easy to show you right now, but there's other ones obviously. Like this stuff is amazing to me, which is why if you pick up the most recent version or the most recent issue of White Dwarf magazine, which is 465, I don't have it within arm's reach, sadly. But if I did, there's like a 4 or 5 page article in this month's White Dwarf 465 about Scott, who did the paintovers for our game. They had him do a bunch of paintovers of a bunch of photos that they took of models, I think, and they're definitely all obviously Games Workshop stuff. And then he did like almost like a little tutorial about how he kind of does his process and all that kind of stuff. And it was super interesting. So yeah, I was super glad to see like him getting more recognition and things like that. And now he's also doing a bunch of work for Mantic as well right now. He's doing a bunch of paintovers for them as well. So yeah, it's very cool. But I've kicked around the idea of, like I said, trying to produce maybe some prints in some fashion if people want to, I don't know, hang them in their house. I don't know if you would, but necessarily, you know, weird little demons, but I do like a bunch of the artwork quite a bit. I might just do it for myself. We'll see. I've been building Age of Sigmar minis lately. After 2 years of skirmish, do you find those big piles of gray plastic for army games kills your soul a little hot now that you play mostly skirmish? Sam and I had a conversation about this last week when we were playing Kill Team. No, Warcry. It's interesting because, and I'm thinking I'm going to be making a video about this soon actually, but it's about the concept of investment. So there's the money investment that you end up paying for big army games in comparison to skirmish. And there's the investment in then building and painting all of them, and that's a whole bunch of time. And then, and this is kind of what Sam brought up, there's also just the investment of sitting down to play the game. Like our game of Warcry was very quick. I still needed to stream that night. Like I had to stream at 7 p.m. And so we got together later in the afternoon and we still played a game of, set up, played a game of Warcry, shot the breeze, had a good time with it, and then packed everything up. And I still got home in time to eat some dinner and then, hop on the stream on Twitch at 7 p.m. And so if we would have decided, hey, let's get together and play a game of Age of Sigmar, that wouldn't have been possible in that type of time period. So it just didn't work, So it's an investment in time in the actual gameplay. It's investment in time in the building and painting, and then it's investment in money, and then also investment in storage. I mean, there's a lot of investment that goes into playing the big army games. And the question becomes whether or not it's worth it to you. For me, it's not, which is why I'm just not playing the big army games for the most part anymore. Except for, again, like I said, I'm building a 1,000-point list of Night Haunts for this one particular thing, but still. In general, yeah, it's just not for me. But I'm not saying it's bad. Again, it's like it's an aesthetic thing, except it's not aesthetic. It's a preference thing. I don't prefer to play that type of game, but if you have tons of time, have a decent amount of money, have plenty of place to storage, or whatever, and I really, really, really find the benefit in loving a big army game, then that's absolutely for you. But if you're like, I love a big army game, but I can't afford it, I can't figure out where to put it all and stuff like that, then, again, it becomes a value judgment on what you want to do, and then that kind of helps you make your decision on what games you want to play. Just because, it seems like everybody plays 40K, that doesn't mean you need to. On the other hand, if you've got nobody else to play with except for the people that play 40K at your local shop, and you don't know anybody else, then you've got a choice. You've either got to then go, okay, well, now I've got to figure out how to get at least an army together to be able to play with those folks if I want to, or you've got to find a smaller game and build 2 small forces for it and try to get other folks to play with you so that you can maybe eventually get them to be like, you know what, I'll buy a force for that game, and then I'll start playing it. You become a gaming advocate, which I made a video about 8 years ago. So, there's all these different things. I'd totally buy a poster of the Rain and Hell cover. It's awesome. Well, thank you. We're working on shirts, merch, shirts, maybe even some hats. So that's coming soon. I'm a little bummed that I can't wear the hats because I have a giant skull, and so it doesn't. Yeah, but the hat design that I'm working on, I'm like, I would wear that hat, but it would look like a little tiny beanie on top of me. Did you ever go to? And this is maybe just for the Americans, but when I was a kid, you would go in the summer to Dairy Queen, and you would get a little plastic baseball cap for whatever the closest baseball team was to your particular Dairy Queen. In my case, it was the Milwaukee Brewers, and it was plastic, and they would turn it upside down, and they would put a sundae in there, and then you would eat the sundae out of the plastic baseball cap, and you would go home, and then you would wash off and then you had a cool little plastic baseball cap. That's what normal baseball hats look like on my head now. It's just, it's not It's a problem. So one of the reasons that I wear the fezzes from time to time is because I can actually get them to fit my giant skull. So I even found a place online one time that's just known as like extra large hats or something like that, or bighatsformen.com or some junk like that. And I bought just a black baseball style cap that is designed for people with freakishly large heads like me. And it still just didn't look right. I don't know. It's a bummer. Become an advocate for a smaller game. Absolutely. Losing big army games feels worse than losing skirmishes. That's kind of the thing that Sam was like too. He's like, if you lose, you're like, well, half hour, 45-minute game. But if you play for like 3 hours and then lose, you're like, oh, yeah. It's an investment thing. Everyone's got their own sweet spot for time, money, space, effort when it comes to modeling, painting, and playing. Each of that trinity has its own sweet spot. It's very true. It's very true. Yeah, absolutely. Rain and Hell Fez. Maybe. I mean, honestly, I should probably produce just a plain old Tabletop Minions Fez before I go down that road, because I've had a lot of people ask about it. But I don't know. I'll have to see if the folks from Fezorama, which is where I buy my Fezes from, if they're going to be at Gen Con this year. Because if they are, I will have a conversation with, I think his name is Jason, and we will talk a little bit about that, because I still would like to do a Fez. But not just like it's constantly for sale. It would be more of the idea that I've had is calling it a Fez starter. So it's kind of like a Kickstarter, but it's not really. It's just basically a pre-order. So like we would produce a Fez that I could then photograph and wear on my head in a video and all that kind of stuff. And then say, okay, for a month, we're going to take pre-orders on it. And then once that month is done, then we know how many that they need to produce. And then they produce them and ship them and all that kind of stuff. And, there's your Fez starter. So yeah. Let's see here. It hurts even more losing units in 40k because as a you go, I go system, often enough you're losing units and can do nothing about it for many minutes. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That's another reason why I'm not a big fan of 40k these days either, is because they just won't change the activation system, and it's just really, in my opinion, outdated and old, and I'm tired of it. So there's that, yeah. I hadn't thought about those baseball ice cap ice cream cups in decades. From just south of the Illinois border here. It was a Cubs hat here. Well, that makes sense. Sure, yeah. I'll admit, a major negative for me is simply storage space for armies. Where do I put them all? I need a bag of holding. Yeah, I can understand that. If you play for 3 hours and know you've lost in the first half hour, it can be just as bad as well. Yeah, exactly. Now, sometimes you're wrong. I made a video about that a long time ago, but don't give up. Like, I used to play, I haven't done it in a while, mainly because of the COVID, but a friend of mine and I were playing Star Wars X-Wing, and we just didn't go into the 2.0 version. We've just stuck with the 1.0 version. It's just the two of us playing against each other, and it's fine. Anyway, there would be times when, like, one of us would be like early on in the game, you'd be like, well, I've already lost. I've lost. I'm going to lose. This is not, there's no way for me to come back. And then you still come back and win the game. But early on, it looks like all bets, all signs show that you're going to lose the game. But if you stick it out, sometimes you don't. And so I made a video about don't just like give up right away. But sometimes you're completely right in the first thought, and you're like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to lose this game, and then you lose it. So there's that too. I have a hard time getting as engaged in skirmish games as in big army games. It's a shame because in theory, skirmish games appeal to me a lot more. See, and that's the thing too. There's a lot of people who are like, I don't like skirmish games because I love the big army spectacle. I love a big board with lots and lots and lots of models on it and tons of terrain, and that's totally fine. But I am fine with that same thing shrunk down, and I also appreciate the benefits that come from that as well, as far as the all of the other stuff, like the not having to carry a giant bag full of stuff, not having to store all that stuff, not having to the terrain fits in a smaller area, like all that stuff. I dig that too. Great, now I'm looking at Fezes. The Fezorama Fezes are pretty nice. As someone else who has a melon head, I also feel your pain. Well, I literally, like, years ago, walked up to their booth at Gen Con, and I was looking at all the cool Fezes, and they were like, would you like to try something on? I'm like, I'm pretty sure you don't have anything that would fit me. And they went and grabbed a Fez, and they put it over my head, and it was like a KFC bucket. It just went, like, I think it covered my eyes, and I was like, huh, I had no idea. So I wear a 3X in their sizing, but they make, I think, 4X and 5X. So like they could, yeah. Turns out they do make hats that fit me. They're just fezzes, and they're made by these guys, which is why I've gone back repeatedly. I believe I own 5 fezzes from them now. And my plan was to buy a 6th last year, but then COVID. So this year, if they're there, I'll probably buy another one. And I think with 6 you get egg roll. No, that's not true. I do prefer games where your minis get to shoot the turn that they are killed. Seems to help balance out the Alpha Strike armies. Yeah, I know what you mean. Some games are built well for pulling it out of the fire. 40K isn't really one of them. That's sometimes also true, I agree. Photography question. Do you ever use macro lenses when taking pictures of your minis, or just normal 50mm? I generally, these days, almost always use macro lenses for that kind of stuff, though I don't, not always. It's hard to kind of say. It's depending upon if I'm looking for, what kind of field of view I'm looking for. Like the lens that I'm using now on Twitch, actually, the one that points down at what I'm painting, that one I just recently updated. The original lens that I had that was attached to that camera, which is a Sony A5100, was just a normal kit zoom that came with it, which was like a 16-50. And I would usually set it to about 47, 48 or so. But the problem was I couldn't get more than about a foot away, or I couldn't get any closer than a foot, roughly, to the lens, so I couldn't do a real close-up because it would get blurry. And so now I have a straight just 50mm, a Sony 50mm macro lens, which I can get to about roughly about this far away from the front element on the lens, about a little bit, 1.25 inches. But then the problem is when I get that close to the lens for you to see something, then it's real dark because there's no light like right there by the lens. I've thought about getting one of those circle lights, like a small one just to put attached to the lens, kind of almost like a filter where you screw it in there. I haven't gone down that road yet, but yeah, I've just recently switched to a 50 for that. But otherwise, for my other cameras, which are mainly Panasonics or Micro Four Thirds stuff, I have a 45mm macro and a 90mm macro. I think that's it. Painting terrain all day, glorious. I'll be doing some painting a little bit later on in the afternoon. Duluth Trading Company has a hat size for those of us with superior craniums. To be fair, I do own like kind of a watch cap, style, like, or a newsboy cap type thing. I own one of those that's all made out of like patchwork different, and I got it from Duluth Trading Company. Now that you mention it, I forgot about that. I mean, I didn't forget about the hat, but I forgot about where I got it from. Yeah, it was one of those things where you like walking. We have like a Duluth Trading Company outlet store, and I was just like walking through looking at bins of stuff, and I'm like, oh, that hat's kind of cool. And I put it on, and I was like, whoa, it fits. That's, yeah. And so then you buy it. When you find a hat that fits when you got a head this size, you buy it. That's generally the case. Not always, I guess. Could be a goofy hat, but play Infinity, you react and you get to shoot back always. I mean, that's one of the nice things about Infinity, certainly, is the reaction system and all that kind of stuff. I do like that. There's other parts of Infinity that flummox me, and it just hasn't took hold. I've had several demos of Infinity, including Sam trying to teach me how to play, and there's times when like something happens and you're just like, so that's the rule, and he's like, yeah, that's how it goes, and you're like, oh, that seems weird. So yeah, it just hasn't quite done it for me. Should probably start packing up, says Terrier Halo. Been a good hobby day, and this was a good ending to it. You people have a good one. Oh yeah, it's getting there. We've got about 5 more minutes left. Just finished painting plague drones. Nice. I had such high hopes that the turn and save mechanic of Apocalypse was going to make its way into 9th. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it was interesting to see how Apocalypse did that and go, man, that'd be really cool if they kind of brought some of that stuff into 9th edition. And they never did. Yeah, no. I was just talking to a friend of mine recently about that. Like, I have a suspicion they might never change the activation system to 40K, because I think the competitive people would completely freak out. As it was, a lot of competitive players hated the activation system for Age of Sigmar, because there could be a possibility you might get to go twice in a row, because you might go at the end of turn 2 and then you roll again at turn 3 and then you get to go first. So it's like you get to go twice. To which my answer is, sometimes that's the way war works, I guess. I mean, but it's interesting that people are trying to take, and this is just from an outsider standpoint, so take this with a grain of salt. I think it's interesting that the competitive scene seems to be very focused on, I go and then you go, and I go and then you go, because then we can plan for it, just like we do in chess. chess, I know that I get to move, and then you get to move, and then and we can then plan 6, turns out or whatever like that. Except that there's also dice and a whole bunch of other weird random stuff that are going to happen in the game anyway. I just don't see the point to you go, I go, you go, I go. Like, if you're going to be dealing with a bunch of other random things, then there's no reason, in my opinion, to make it just so that I have to sit here and watch you play for half an hour, and then you sit and watch me play for a half an hour, and then now we're on turn 2. And I don't know. It's just a personal preference thing. I'm not telling people that if they enjoy it that they're wrong. I don't enjoy that about it, and that's one of the reasons that I don't play that, and the fact that I'm just not into big army games. 2 reasons that I currently don't play any 40k. You know what else I like about Grimdark Future? No wound rolls. You roll to hit, the opponent rolls to save. It's so much faster, and it feels like and feels bad vibes. It took me a hard time to get that written or read. I haven't played. What's the Grimdark one? Firefight? Is that kind of the slightly smaller, more closer to Kill Team, but not exactly Kill Team kind of thing from 1-page rules? I own the rules, or I don't know if it was free or if I bought the premium version on wargamevault.com. I don't remember, but I have it. But I haven't played it yet. Dead Zone is fun. If you get the Mars attacks, you can add it to that. Huh, that's interesting. Why not just play chess then? Because there's no Space Marines in chess. So there's that. With 40k and turn sequences, I feel like it's a bit of Dungeons & Dragons. There are some things that are odd, but kept for legacy's sake. It's recognizable as the brand. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some let's not make any changes because change is bad sort of situations going on. I get that. Last Kill Tame's activation rules could work fairly well for 40k. I thought so too. I honestly did. I was really like, I think this would work great for Kill Team. I mean, for 40k, I remember playing a game of 40k with a friend where we used the bolt action mechanic for activation. So like, I had let's say I had 8 units and my opponent had 9 units, and the unit could be a single character, or it would be a unit like a squad, or it'd be a vehicle or whatever. And then we just threw dice in a bag of different colors, like his were blue and mine were red or whatever. And then you reach in the bag and then pull out, a red one, I get to do something. And then I pick a predator tank that goes and does this and fires or whatever. And then we reach in the bag again, I got a red one again, cool. My scouts are going to move up. And then he's like, okay, cool, my Eldar are going to do this. And I thought it worked great. It was a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, obviously, if you just want to play with your friends and your friends are like, let's do it that way, knock yourself out. You can totally do it. Obviously, if you go to a tournament, not going to work. Because they're going to be like, let's roll off for first turn. You're going to show them your dice bag, and they'll be like, no, we're not doing that. That's not how it works here. I get that. But amongst you and your friends, that's the great thing about tabletop games is you can just make them do whatever you want. The rules are there to be broken or changed or modified or whatever. So, yeah. Let's see here. Built some Rain and Hell objectives during the show. Thanks for the distraction. Absolutely. Not a problem. 3 or more chances to fail most actions you're trying to do in the game isn't my idea of a fun time. Yeah, I can understand that. Have you ever worked with metal filters when painting minis? No, I haven't. There's actually a video game that's straight up chess with Marines and Orcs. Huh, interesting. Bolt action beyond the gates of Antari's activation is so much fun. I like it. It's the same type of activation also that Star Breach kind of uses as well. We thought about going down that road, but we wanted it to be... Like, it makes a ton of sense in bolt action that you would have such a fog of war that you would have no idea at any given time what the next activation was going to be. We wanted it to see, like, at the beginning of the turn, we now kind of know what the activation is for the turn, but the next turn could be completely different, and we dug that. And that's one of the reasons that we built the activation for Rain and Hell the way we did. But it makes a lot of sense for World War II, where there's smoke and explosions and stuff like that, and you don't know who's going to go next, and you reach in the bag and go, okay, well, I get to pick now, and you go from there. And so it's like shorter range, you don't know what's going on, but you have a general idea, eventually all of these guys are going to get to activate. We wanted to make it more like, you're going to see it here at the beginning of the round, and then you're going to go from there. So, Anyway, it's 11 o'clock in my neck of the woods, and so I gotta get ready, and we're gonna go over to the in-laws for lunch and all that kind of stuff, and I probably have to mow the lawn later or something dumb like that. So I want to thank everyone for coming by. I hope that everyone I didn't, frankly, we all kind of know roughly the same amount about what's coming from Kill Team, just kind of what we saw. But there will be more articles coming soon. I'm sure they'll keep hyping, and it seems like the release will be coming in August. Not sure when, but some point. If I had to guess, I'd probably say later August, probably, but I could be wrong. But if I had to guess, I'd probably say later August. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out and getting my hands on the rules specifically. Everything else is kind of like, yeah, great, okay, fine, but I really want to know about the rules. And I'm hoping that when I do, I can kind of tell you folks about it. And we'll look forward to then. All right, well, so thanks for coming by again. If you're interested, I paint on Twitch as well. I'll be doing that. I don't think I'll be doing it tomorrow night. Normally I paint on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central, but I've got a bunch of friends in town that I haven't seen since, 2 years now because of the pandemic. And I think we're going to dinner, so probably they'll get moved till Tuesday. Just follow me on Twitter, and then I will post about it there. So generally, though, it's Monday nights, but I think tomorrow it might get actually bumped and then actually be Tuesday night. But otherwise, Friday morning at 10 a.m. Central as well. It's another place that you can... another time you can watch me paint stuff on Twitch. So we'll see you folks later, and thanks for watching.